We say yikes. Yikes. You're
Okay.
Hey, a lot of people attending tonight. That's great.
if we
Wonderful.
exceed the allowed number of attendees, I'll have to take a moment to increase that number.
What's the maximum number you have, John?
It's 100, I think.
Oh, well.
I'm hoping that we'll
I
be
think
under
it
100.
may be 50
Wow.
though. Just a moment.
We're over 52 now.
Yes, I think it's 100. But it can be increased. Just takes doing that.
So all these people are here to talk about the roads being paved. That's
Of
amazing.
course, it's a
Clearly.
big issue.
Fantastic.
Absolutely.
Nothing sets off the town than the condition of the roads.
Yeah, when I saw Andrew's email tonight about road resurfacing, I was like, phew, oh my gosh.
That's not what Georgette and I are thinking.
They're still coming.
Wow, this is amazing.
I want to remind everybody that your the name on your video or on your non-video needs to be something we can know who's actually here. Not because we'll kick you out, but because anonymous participation is frowned on.
No bueno.
Well, it looks like we've got at least 75 participants.
Made from heavier material than
Okay.
All right, well. $70 connections so far. Okay.
Mhm.
So if I don't see who's what, I apologize right now. Okay. I'm going to call the town council meeting February 27th to order. Let me first a comment on the a comment on the agenda. The initial intention of the council was to consult with our town attorney for legal advice. because Rob Gilmore was suddenly unable to attend, it was felt that this should be postponed. So the closed session that we would otherwise be proposing has been deferred. We'll talk about when we will hold that at the end. I've proposed that we do it before the March 11th regular meeting of the town council at 6:15. So what that means is that the council meeting would actually start at 6:15. The council would decide whether or not to go into closed session. We go into closed session, then the open meeting would recommence at 7:30 at the regular time. So that's just for everyone's FYI, if you don't hang in there till the end when we decide exactly whether to do that. Okay.
John, this is Barbara. Can you just clarify for people who may not know the reason for that meeting so they don't get it confused with what we're doing now?
Well, yeah, don't get excited, right? Or maybe do get excited. Yeah, the council has asked our town attorney, Sir Ellen Ferguson, to ask for some guidance as to what the legal options the town has, both from the state, the county, and in our own ordinance regarding neglected maintenance of properties in town, as to how to go about correcting issues that have arisen in the past that still continue to a certain degree. So that would be legal advice regarding that issue. The council has expressed an interest in establishing a procedure for addressing issues of neglected maintenance as they arise. That would take the form of, first we do this, then we do that, sort of thing. And to make that happen, we're starting with the legal options as they exist today. So that's what that closed session was for. And any action, any establishment of the policy will of course be done in open meeting.
Hey, John.
Okay.
John, before I make the motion to approve the agenda, since there's 70 people here, could you just, for everybody, go over the ground rules of how this is going to work tonight? Because otherwise, it's going to be.
I would do that. We've called to order. I reestablished public appearances for this meeting simply because the council's now going to deal with the other business in open session. Since most of you are not here, I trust, to do a public appearance on a different issue from what's already on the agenda. Peter's right. So we really have three main items of business. We want to get started on roadwork plans to which we typically expend funds at the end of the fiscal year. The Racial Equity Committee has transmitted a report on the diversity, equality, and inclusion survey that was done in 2022. And so that is now, we now have a compilation of the data as they have transmitted it. It takes so that's one item for the council to discuss, and we may well take public comment on that tonight. And of course, the other one is the recommendations that came from RASIC that stem really from an analysis, partly from an analysis of that survey. And equally, the resolution that was passed sort of last year, where we repudiate racism, acknowledge past racism in town, and as importantly, had aspirations to to for town policies to be consciously non-racist, non-exclusionary going forward. So they've sent over 5 recommendations for the council to consider, for the town to consider, and that is the second major part of this meeting. Now, you know that nobody, those just arrived last week. Any of you who have read all those materials, congratulations. The council hopefully has read all of those materials. I know some people have spent some time thinking about it, but to take action on any of those, my recommendation, and the council can of course make their own decision, at this meeting would seem to be precipitous. So I would anticipate that there would be some time for some of you to address those recommendations after the council puts in an initial word, and perhaps hopefully some consensus as to how to proceed in considering these, anywhere from, you know, adopting them all, burying them all, or leaving them open for discussion, or opening them even to wider discussion. So if all of you are here hoping to speak, that just can't happen, obviously. But hopefully you'll hear at least how this is going to, how the council plans to address this and going forward. So that's what we're going to do. Anybody who does speak is going to be very limited in what they say. We are the town and the council now have a policy that yes, you can have a personal appearance if we have nothing else going on much. We'll talk about it at length, but if it's a matter like this one, like this issue, it would be a very brief verbal statement, but everyone is absolutely encouraged to supply the council and the town with their written remarks, so that they can be reviewed, so that they can be, you know, be accounted for going forward in the discussion about these. Okay, that about what you wanted, Peter?
Yeah, except that when people are giving their comments, it would be really helpful if somebody says something, it's not repeated 20 times to show that there's a majority pushing, because all we're doing is gathering information, correct?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah,
that's a good
okay,
point. I mean, you know, it's simply not a good use of anybody's time to hear that you agree with so-and-so or the past 10 so-and-sos. But the council is very interested in hearing anything different, or any personal point of view, of course. So
This is Barbara. I'm going to disagree with you. I think if people want to say they agree with somebody, they should say they agree with somebody. If they want to repeat somebody's point, that's really up to them. I don't think we should try to, we do need to be mindful of time. So I definitely think we should, if we want to set a time limit, that's fine. But I don't think we should be instructing people about what they should or shouldn't say.
Well, in Washington Grove, that's, you can't do that
nobody,
anyway.
yeah, nobody's instructing anybody on what to say.
Right.
But when there's a finite amount of time, it simply isn't a good use of that time to hear, you know, yes, I'm in favor of that. Thank you very much. Even that just doesn't add to the discussion. Yes, it's a valid opinion, but if the council wants to hear that, that's fine. But I would, you know,
Well, I think there's a simple solution here, which is that we have the chat and people have already put stuff in the chat. So I think you could easily say in the chat if you agree, and then it's not taking up more time.
Right.
Okay, that's one way to allow someone to express. And by the way, just for those of you who don't know, we do record the council sessions. They've been recorded now for almost 2 years. And those recordings in a variety of kind of formats of presentations, one of which is the closed caption or the verbal, a machine text file. So you don't actually have to see anybody, you can listen to them. But those are all available to anybody who wants them. We have not put them up on the web, but I give access to anybody who has ever asked that they want to hear what went on at the council. That goes for past councils and hopefully will go for future council meetings as well. So the chat will also be saved.
Hmm.
So anybody who expresses opinion there, it will be recorded and others can view that as well. That's a good point. Thank you.
So this is Barbara again. I just want to reiterate, I stand by my point that I'm interested in hearing what people say, whether it's been said before or not, but that's how I feel about this.
Okay. All right. So that's all kinds of procedural stuff. So do we have anybody here with on a public appearance on something that is not already on?
John, motion to approve the agenda.
No, it comes after
No?
I
Does it?
have it in the wrong place, but okay. I'll
All
move
right.
it. There's a motion to approve the agenda. I'll show the agenda. Everybody should have had a chance to look at the agenda in advance, but here it is. I just changed the position of approval of the agenda, which had dropped below public appearances. Because when we had a closed meeting, we weren't going to do public.
Mhm. Right.
Okay, so any comments on the agenda? Questions?
Who did the second?
I knew you were going to say that. Nobody.
I'll second. This is Eva.
Eva says second of the agenda. All
Thank
right.
you.
There's no discussion, further comments on the agenda, then let's move to a vote. All in favor on the council?
I
Any opposed? Speak up. I'm having trouble finding everybody at the moment. I'll get you a rearrange when somebody else gets a chance to talk. Okay, the agenda is adopted. Thank you. All right, now we're on to public appearances on matters that are not already on the agenda. You'll have to speak up because I won't find you in the 78 connections we currently have. Okay,
Wow.
there are no public appearances then. We'll move along to mayor's announcements, which I'm sure you're all thrilled to see is blessedly blank. I will certainly respond to any inquiries about something that I didn't already indicate in the announcements, but I don't have any. All right, then we have an administrative matter which I put at the top of the meeting, and that is planning for the fiscal 24 road repair work. There was a couple of documents were in the materials for the council and for anybody to see. Last year, and I'm going to get them out, but I don't have it already out. Last year, we put out an RFP for road work, which included, I think there were 13 areas around town, segments of roadway. There weren't 13, there were 10 or 11. And we got bids on all of them, and from which totaled $184,000. That was last year's money, last year's cost. And from that, we chose the highest priority segments of road repairs. So this is a strategy the council that we've used in the past. We used once before, so that this year we could take a look and we would be already have identified the road segments that were thought to need attention at some time or another. It's not to say there aren't areas that need new areas to be considered, and I think we've already had one suggestion. I've had a suggestion offline that Sixth Avenue be improved because it has part of Sixth Avenue, which is a walkway, is also the only access to several residences. So and cars to those residences are allowed on the road. And all right, so we did 9, and what I'm really proposing to the council is that we will go back to Veers and to Laney, who made bids on these individual segments. I can, by the way, show them to you, just since I went to all the trouble to. Wait a second, where's my? There it is. Right. So this is, I'd have to blow this up to show you this map. This is all the segments. Hopefully you can see that. Too big. Those are the segments. There, and they're listed up here. And the bids from last year are here as well. And some sort of prioritization that's listed under my name here was done. So we did all the ones, and now we're left with the others. So I propose that we go back to the 2 bidders, ask them for current prices for this same work, and then the council can handle can then decide how to spend the funds we have available, which is a good question, and I'm forgetting how much it is. I'm sorry, but we'll definitely work within the budget, both this year's budget and possibly part of next year's budget, since the work can be done June, July. In other words, crossover the 2 fiscal years. Okay, so this is it.
John, I have a question about the bidders.
Sorry.
Can we have another bidder included in this, or is it just these 2?
Well, if we do that, we have to reissue the RFP.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that the RFP had already gone out for this. Okay.
No, the RFP went out last year. This avoids the RFP. It merely utilizes the responses to the RFP, since presumably there would be nothing new here. If there's anything new, we would have to issue an RFP on that.
Okay. Okay.
But these all have been, under an RFP, and the 2 bidders went to some effort to give us these individual breakdowns here.
Say no more. I got it.
Okay.
Next year. Okay.
And
So-
go ahead.
I'm not clear yet. Looking at this A through L, that we're seeing, which of these items have already been taken care of and which have not?
Okay, I should have indicated it on here, but I will do so now. This one has, what should I put here? I'll make it gray. So I don't want to do that. I want to shade it gray. Shade it there. So Macaulay Avenue to Wade Park, Chestnut Road to Wade Park was done. Sorry.
So John, can you indicate
Johnson Alley to Wade Park was done.
Can you indicate, looking at the priorities, like have all the 1s been done and all the
Yes,
2s been
yes, all
done?
the ones have been
Okay, so the 1s have been done. What about the 2s? Looking at like H and I.
done. Right. Ridge to Maple Road? No. No, Center Ridge to Maple. It may have been done. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, that was not done. What we did is we did the intersection. We did the intersection of Ridge and Maple. So we actually did part of this. We did the Maple Road tar and chip. That's for sure we did. I mean, the Center Street tar and chip. We did Railroad, Chestnut Road, Railroad to Brown. Yes. So we did some of the twos, actually, correct.
You didn't do number C,
C.
Macaulay, yeah, Chestnut Road, that's not done, because that's
No, this was
a
not done.
disaster.
That's
Yeah, okay,
correct.
So,
okay.
so I'm wondering, can we, I really love this spreadsheet because I think it's easy to understand and very clear, but I'm wondering if we could add a column to show what's already been done and
Yeah,
what's
of
not
course.
been done.
And
And then Andrew Hodling sent, an email today talking about Sixth Avenue, which sort of you can see in F is Dorsey Street, Grove Road to Sixth Avenue, but I'm not sure whether it includes the area that Andrew was talking about. But I'm wondering
Well,
if
it must not include it because it's a
Oh.
1 and it's already been done.
yeah,
And what
that's what
Andrew's
I'm
asking
thinking.
for has not been done.
no, it hasn't been done. So look, what we're discussing here is just going out and getting updated costs for
Mhm.
these segments. And yes, if I would add with our current bidders that segment on Sixth Avenue, which would be a tar and chip. It's currently not paved. I believe it may have been tar and chipped a long time ago, but that would be the kind of thing. The tar and chip is what we did between Maple Avenue and Maple Road on Center. It's
John, that's a planning commission. It's very complex, and I don't think we want to talk about it in this meeting.
no, I agree we don't. But
Yeah, because, yeah, not that, but what Andrew is requesting, we need to talk about that.
Okay, fine.
Thank you.
I'm not.
Yeah, I
None
know.
of this is a decision to do work. All of this is a strategy to get a bid to do the work. That's different.
Mhm.
Okay. So if we want to get it done within this fiscal year, I wanted to start. We should start now, and hopefully we'll be in a position to, certainly in the meeting in June, to go forward with, if not earlier.
So I guess, John, what I'm wondering is if we can update the spreadsheet to delete the items that have already been done.
Yes.
And then to add the item that Andrew proposed and then reconsider
Yeah.
what
And then
needs to be done this year.
someone in the chat is also wondering how to nominate roads for consideration for
Right.
repairs. I'm guessing just email the council like Andrew did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so
So could we update the spreadsheet and then add it to the agenda for the March meeting?
yes, absolutely. I would like to go to the bidders, but we can do that in March. That's fine. That's in 2 weeks. So, okay, we'll revisit the detail. There really is no way to decide what to do without real costs. And that was the first step here. And yes, we need to cover all of the road segments, which anyone has an interest in upgrading, so. Okay. Let's, that's the plan, so we'll come back, I'll come back to, the March meeting in a couple weeks with that updated, and we can just decide to move forward. And any new ones, that will give the planning commission, who seems to want to weigh in early. I want to emphasize, a bid is not a contract. So it just takes some progressive actions to be in a position to get the work done in a timely way. So,
John, just to be clear, the planning commission isn't interested in the paving of roads. We're interested in the paving of walkways. That's why I brought up that distinction. That's the only reason. Okay.
right,
Pave away otherwise.
okay. All right, any further questions, comments on that plan for now? Okay, before I leave administrative matters, I'm going to remind everybody here of the other quote administrative things that are going on. The big one is the stormwater management, stormwater infrastructure maintenance RFP, which is a plan to spend our ARPA money and likely some of our state bond fund money, which was awarded for the purposes of stormwater management, specifically in the West Woods, but everything that we're doing and looking at impacts the West Woods. So hopefully the council is going to get another look at a revised RFP in March on that. We also we're going to be sending out we have to send out, I think it's prudent, our leaf collection contract, which ran for, it was awarded in 2019, 20, FY20, and yes, FY20, and had 4 renewals. That's the end of the renewals is this year. So we need to rebid the leaf contract. So that needs to be authorized also at our next meeting. And as you know, we have a contract out, an RFP for auditing services, as well as refuse and recycling. And the idea is to hopefully get bids on the water contract for refuse and recycling, because the cost of that gets put into the budget. But specifically, it is the town dwelling tax assessment. It's a pass-through expense. So we have all of those that I just mentioned also to deal with on the next meeting. All righty. Okay. Then we can move on now to the next agenda item, which is the diversity, equity, and inclusion survey results. And I feel quite certain that Paula's, she's right in the middle of my screen. Look at that. So she's the chairman of the RACIC committee, or co-chair, and is the face of the transmission of the DEI survey report. And in discussion, we really, I mean, the report is 120 slides or something like that. Will do nobody any good to do an actual presentation on the data per se. We determined that would be a poor use of time, unless the council feels otherwise, in which case I would recommend we schedule a meeting for a presentation of the data's compilation and evaluation, all of which is in that report. That, by the way, was delivered in 5 in 5 Zoom.
Five presentations.
Sorry,
There were 5 presentations
Yes.
for each section,
5
which
pieces.
described the data for each section. And there were discussions after that. And the purpose was that they would act as a catalyst for discussion. So that
Yes.
already occurred. All of those presentations occurred. So tonight, if there are technical questions, I'll be happy to take them back and let people review the data and make sure that the answers are accurate and comprehensive. But everything, as John said, was sent in the full analysis of the data based on the survey respondents and those discussions. So everything is in that report. Also, just to point out, in the session 5 notes, there are summaries of every session. So that's something that if I hope the council can look at that to get a good overview, or anyone can.
So Paula, I was kind of overwhelmed by 120 slides.
Yeah.
But I did look starting at slide 104 because that's where the summary starts, and I did review 104 through 120 quite closely. But one of the things I would love it if you could focus on was how the survey relates to the RASIC recommendations, because even after reviewing slides 104 through 120, I'm still not entirely clear on how the results played into the recommendations.
Well, I need to look at each recommendation to think about that. Part of it, let me look, I'm gonna go through the recommendations here, just so that I can be more specific. Some of the things, I can tell you one thing right now, some of the things that came out in the survey were things like, what is RASIC? There were a lot of different opinions about whether people had actually experienced racism here or not, and how do they identify it. And so there seemed to be a lot of confusion about that. And even if we needed something like that, and some people were saying they absolutely observed bias and discrimination. So one of the recommendations is to hire a diversity, equity, and inclusion specialist, which would do some training so that people could learn how to recognize racist and inappropriate behaviors and receive feedback constructively and call it out without shaming. So that was one thing that did come pretty directly from that. Let's see. There were things in the survey, especially comments in some of the word clouds, that talked about whether Washington Grove seemed to be welcoming to neighboring communities. And one of the recommendations is to collaborate with neighboring communities regarding the shared use path, which would be a gesture and something practical in terms of negotiating with the county on shared interests. So those are two that I can just think of off the bat. And anybody else on the committee can chime in.
Tad, I'd like to add something.
Yes? Tad?
So Paul, as you mentioned, in the 5 presentations, and there was discussion associated with the presentation.
Good point.
And some of the recommendations first emerged in the context of those discussions, right? So at the end of each presentation of the data, the people who were participating had some discussion and also some, about potential responses. So that was another area of connection.
This is
Mhm.
Eva. So I think Christine's question is really good. And thank you, Paul, for illuminating some of how the recommendations came from the surveys. I think I'm assuming a lot of people are here because of the specific recommendation about the renaming of McCatherine Hall. And I'm wondering if now is an appropriate time to do so, if you can talk about how survey results or discussion from the sessions maybe led to that idea. I guess I'm just curious, where that came from, if there was something that was being, came up that felt like RASIC felt like it needed to be addressed. If you could kind of walk us through how the idea to rename developed.
Ava,
Mhm.
hold up.
Mhm.
So I understand the interest in addressing the recommendations, and I think Christine's question was relevant to the survey. I think what you're asking is Ava, would more appropriately be in a discussion of that recommendation as to, among other things, how did the survey factor into making that recommendation? My thought here on this at this point was to really address the survey itself. Okay, now I know it's been a while since the survey was sent out, but there are some statistics and some facts about the survey that are highly relevant. Larry is up here, right at the top of my screen. I'm not going to ask Larry to comment, but the first thing you have to do with the survey, it really is understand who contributed to the data. So really, and how was the data, maybe how was that used to how was that analyzed? And this report explains a good deal of that. At the top of the survey, and I'm just going to show it. We didn't really allow a presentation, but let me just show you this is 16, which is demographics, which comes after how the results are laid out and a bunch of other things as to how the analysis went along. But this is the demographics tells you, the basic source of the data that's being analyzed. Importantly, 123 survey responses go into this. Then it talks about how long people have lived in Washington Grove, age distribution, language, ethnic background, ethnic identification, sex, and all of those form different ways of parsing out the answers to the questions that were in the survey. And to the extent the survey data has been analyzed, I think there's a lot of important underlying, input that went into the responses. 123, I mean, the town, we have 500 plus residents. 123 is probably a pretty good response rate. And there were some by younger people as well, and that's somewhere it's reported. So over here, age, the red bars give you the age distribution. So, the under 45, 10%. So these are important stuff, I think. I think when one considers the responses. I notice I'm just addressing the survey. The recommendations, you can, you know, is a whole another way of looking at whether this data, how, to the extent this data supports the proposals.
John, can I have one question about the 123? Paula, of the 123, they are all Washington Grove residents, correct?
Yeah,
So nobody outside of Washington Grove filled out the survey.
other than the 123, correct. But that's
Okay.
actually pretty high for a survey.
Mhm.
Is my understanding about,
Yeah,
I'm not a statistician, but
Yeah. Well, John said it
No,
was. It must be,
that's a
yeah.
great response rate.
yeah,
It is. It is.
yeah.
Okay, but nevertheless, I mean, you know, not nevertheless, that's a great response rate. But one of the challenges for presenting the results of the survey was, and most of the questions allowed for an explanation or a comment as to why you answered the way you did, and that sort of information is very, very valuable. As those of us who have filled out hundreds of multiple choice, you always feel like, well, you know, I guess I have to answer it this way, but you know, it's only because, but they're not going to know the because unless the survey has been very well crafted. So those anecdotal responses, and I can go down and just show you, have been presented. And they were done in a fairly clever way. That was a small one. Let me go to a bigger one. Here, with one of these, and I don't recall what this is called.
Word cloud. And I
Sorry?
want to give
Word
credit
cloud.
to Arlene and Chaz. Chaz is a statistician. Arlene did the word clouds, and that protected the identity of individuals since it's such a small town. If you did it in any other way, people's identity could be determined. So they were conscious of confidentiality.
Right, that's where I was going with this. So
Sorry.
in order to de-identify, which is of course essential, this is a presentation of those comments with the size kind of indicating the relative size, not the absolute size, the relative size as to you know, what number of people expressed that comment. All right, so in this one, I'm now showing it that I feel engaged and included. That's the largest one by far. But then they get smaller and things go down, and you know, as to other things that were mentioned. So this is again useful, very useful, and important to understand the statistics. And there's lots of statistics here. Everyone at the meeting knows that you can get this off of the link that I put into the agenda. This is available. This basically is the data from the survey. If anyone wants to look closely and for some reason feels they want the data on something a little bit differently, then we could certainly ask that it be reported that way. And that's the kind of thing that, you know, we don't want to overlook, because there may be other ways of evaluating the data. Okay. All right. So this is kind of the background to the survey results. Now, does any of the council have any further questions about the survey? I'm going to then open it up to the rest of you who are here regarding the survey. The presentations that RASIC did were not heavily attended. That's an understatement. But this presentation, if looked at closely, does actually represent a huge amount of of analysis, and it represents the data as well. So anybody who wants to take a look, I urge you to take a look. And questions cannot be asked, of course, perhaps for a while to better understand any aspect of this report. Okay, so I'm going to, I see, Joan, I'm going to wait, and we're doing the council first. Thank you. So let's do that. Any other questions?
I think Joan has her hand up.
I said we're doing the council first.
Okay,
Any
yeah.
other comments from the council? Okay, in that case, Joan has her hand up. Joan, by all means.
All right, I have been a regular member of the RACIC committee. I attended all but one of the meetings where the data was presented to the community. And I have several questions. Who is the author, especially of the notes and the editorial comments at the end of each section? What are that person's qualifications, professional qualifications to do that? Was anyone paid in any way in connection with this survey project? When was this document approved by the RACIC committee? Because this is the first time, once John posted it, this was the first time I saw this complete document with comments. And finally, how does this document help us move forward in a positive way as a town?
The survey was
Joan,
ratified.
why are you asking those questions? Are you questioning the
I
survey
just-
data presentation?
Not the data, but at the end of each section, there are notes, and then there are editorial comments talking about things like the 150th celebration and some other issues that really didn't happen when the survey was administered. So there are extenuating, there are implications of things today that are extrapolated from the survey results. I'm not questioning the figures. I'm questioning comments. Who authored the comments at the end of each section, the summaries and the notes?
I took notes during the discussion about the highlights of the discussion, if that's what you mean.
So you authored that part.
I took notes, yeah, of the discussion. I summarized points that were made during the discussion, during those sessions, yeah.
And then there are also, besides notes, there was some editorial comments made at the end of each section.
I don't really know what you mean. I need to look at you.
I did go all through it, and I attended only 4 of the 5.
I know, but I just don't know exactly what you're referring to right now. But what is your point? I mean, what are you saying? Are you?
I just, well, is this a professional survey? Was it diagnosed in a professional way?
You mean, was it analyzed? The statistician analyzed the data. She is a statistician. Arlene also has a lot of, that's Chaz. Arlene has a lot of experience with surveys. She and Chaz work together, and they produced a professional document. So I don't think their, credentials can be challenged, if that's what you're saying. I'm not sure what you're really after here.
Well, what are the qualifications then? And also, when was this presented to RACIC?
I don't know, Joan. I have to look back. It's been a while, but it was ratified. Nothing ever goes without being ratified.
When was it
The
ratified?
survey was ratified. This was a couple years ago. I don't know. I have to look back.
Okay, no, I don't question the survey was ratified.
Okay.
I don't question the numbers in the survey. But the notes and the editorial comments, this was the first time I've seen them.
Well, that's the first time anyone has seen them. This is
So
being
they-
handed in the packet, just as we discussed at our RACEC meeting. You know, the recommendations came from several sources, and at our meeting, we said that we would turn in the recommendations and the survey data at the same time. It's the first time anyone is seeing all of it. Except for the recommendation work group saw the recommendations. Yeah.
Okay, so this is the first time anyone is seeing it. Thank you.
Mhm, mhm.
Okay. All right, anyone else have any further comments about the, or questions for concerning the survey? I think that was an important clarification. Joan, thank you for asking about the notes. As Paula explained, let's make sure I understood it. Maybe you all did, but the notes come from the discussion at those that followed or was coincident with the presentation of the data. And just reading some of those notes, some of them are just comments on the word cloud. You can decide whether they mean it, that they're correct or not. It's just there's nothing, it's an opinion. You can take it or leave it, and you can check it. And others are maybe a different evaluation or a different comment on the evaluation. Okay. And in that, I think that was a very excellent addition because, RACIC and the committee and the analysts, Chaz, and the ones on the committee who worked with her, had a pretty formidable task to evaluate this data. Any survey, that's a formidable task. But this one, considering, the age groups, the length of time in the Grove, and other things that you and I would immediately ask when you read some of these opinions or these answers, were in fact addressed. So it was a pretty major effort. I'm not commenting on the conclusions. This is just concerning the report itself. So enough of that. I see Larry. I expected, and Larry has comments. So please, Larry.
No, my comments are simply an observation that the respondents to the survey skew much older than the population, because we have the census data to compare them with on page 17. And the males are vastly underrepresented in the survey. The census data says that 54.4% of the residents are male. The respondents were 30.9% of the respondents. So we're seeing. I don't know what the implications of that are, but it's not. It's the characteristics of the respondents do not correspond terribly well to characteristics of the population. I don't know what the implications are, but maybe Paula or other people that worked on it could comment on that.
I didn't really work on that. Did you take the survey? I mean, maybe you don't. No, I really can, but I'd be happy to take that back if you want me to. So your question is what is your, I mean, doesn't that just mean that a lot of the men in Washington Grove just chose not to take it? Am I being simplistic there? I don't know.
Well, then what would happen if what if there were more males that took it and that there were more younger people that took this? how would that affect the distribution of responses? I don't
How
know.
is there an answer to that, though? I mean, unless
It's,
you.
it's surprising to me that a full 20% of the respondents failed to indicate their gender.
Yeah.
The fact that there are close to 49% female respondents is not surprising to me. And that, you know, there are almost 31% male respondents. You know, I can't make anything out of these data because there's such a large percentage of people who failed to respond about what their gender is. And I tend to think that probably most of them were male.
Well, and the population of Washington Grove, I understood to be 525. So I don't know where the 700 comes from. I know Charlie probably isn't talking to us, but he could probably.
No, the current census, it's just over 500.
Well, it
505.
it says 700 here, so the numbers, right? So the
It
numbers.
says 700 where?
Page 17.
It's right there, I'm showing.
That's difficult for me to believe.
Well-
Yeah, in the chat, Mimi says the Census Bureau does not use the boundaries of town as its definition of Washington
Right,
Grove.
so, yeah, so we don't need to have this conversation, I guess,
Mhm.
because it's not relevant.
Um, I have an aside here. Christine has volunteered. I
Yes,
asked
I
for-
have. I have.
You have.
True.
I've been asking for, we've been waiting for the specific data, the breakdown of census data by zip code, by responding response number, location. That came out in August of last year. Unfortunately, you can't just ask them what the data was for Washington Grove. You actually have to go and look at it. And yes, you can get it all. They have a pretty nice site where you can go and parse out all the data that you want, but you have to ask for it and you have to put it together. And Christine has volunteered to do that. And the idea is not just to make work for Christine. The idea is to be able to have this actual table that is the data, or at least of important aspects of the town moving forward. So yeah, these are estimates, and they're, you know, Peter's pointing out one that's just not right for sure. So we can get the actual data, but it's going to take somebody named Christine Dibble's efforts to put it together.
So I'm wondering if we can stop talking about the survey and move on to the RASIC recommendations.
We can, sense of the council, shall we move on to that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Good suggestion. So we'll move on to the RASIC proposals. I'm gonna again, is Paula still here? She's no longer visible. No? Yes? Paula, you here? Uh-oh. Okay. The proposals were all in the materials. I guess I can show the transmittal letter here, which basically summarizes the, here we are, I hope. If somebody sees Paula return, I was going to give her a chance to just briefly summarize that. But the letter explains the 5 proposals, recommendations from RASIC. They are in individual separate documents, but this is the summary and the rationale for RASIC going through a process, and that process is explained in detail as to how they arrived at these recommending to the council that these proposals be considered. The 5 proposals, which based on everybody here, you all know what they are, but here's they are in brief. There is a recommendation to create a town website protocol. That's a protocol for vetting inappropriate, the posting of inappropriate public correspondence to the town on the website on the basis of it simply not being meeting the town's requirements for what's the right term? Opinions rather than attacks is an example. So that's the first one, is a protocol to ensure that what is posted is acceptable and doesn't fall in one of the categories of inappropriate. That is not to say a communication is lost. It means it won't be put on the website. It will be part of the town's records. It will be available to anyone asking for it. It just wouldn't be available for open consumption. Presumably, that's my interpretation. A second recommendation was to collaborate with neighboring communities regarding the shared use path. You can read about what is meant by that. The third was to consider restoring the name of the town hall to the town hall. Everybody is familiar with that one. It proposes that the name McCatherine is
stricken.
Is offensive and represents offensive in terms of past actions of Washington Grove. That's a very truncated summary rationale there. The fourth one is to hire it should be highlighting, to hire a diversity, equity, inclusion specialist. You heard that earlier in this meeting as being one of the things that RASIC saw in the believes that the survey data suggested, or at least a recommendation that would address issues that came out in the survey. And lastly is to establish a communication system between the town and Heritage Emery Grove. Heritage Emery Grove, by the way, is an organization based in Emery Grove. It would be like a committee here that has been, actually it's a partnership. Hopefully they hope it will be a partnership with the county to further the heritage, take actions for with respect to the heritage of Emery Grove, something that we do here, we've done here. We have a historic preservation commission. They don't have any such thing. So proposal to communicate with this group in some sort of prescribed circumstances. Paula?
So, John, I have a procedural question. Not only am I on the council, but I am the town webmaster, and I've spent pretty much all of today trying to update the website with respect to all of the comments that have come in today. And most of them have to do with renaming the town hall. So what I'm wondering is, I think it's appropriate to perhaps discuss renaming of the town hall tonight, but not to make any decision tonight, because there are a lot of very strong opinions, and it may be indeed appropriate to have a town meeting to discuss renaming the town hall before we make a decision. I don't remember offhand whether it is the case that we have to receive a petition of 25 signatures or more in order to have the town meeting, or whether we can just, as a council or as the mayor, say we're going to have a town meeting on this issue. But I'm wondering if tonight we could deal with some of the other recommendations, get them off the plate, and then schedule a town meeting to discuss the renaming of the town hall within the next month or 6 weeks. You know, alternatively, we could have a town meeting to discuss all the recommendations. But I don't want to use the time tonight to get sort of stuck on the issue of renaming the town hall. I'd like to sort of make some progress and see if we can get through some of the other recommendations tonight.
This is Barbara. I think the idea of this, what you're suggesting, would have to be discussed and voted on by the town council, whether we even want to have a town meeting on this. I'm not, that's not a given that we would agree to that as a council.
Just about the mechanics, the town meeting, yes, town meeting can be called by the town council. A town meeting can be called by the mayor. And a town meeting can be called by a petition but usually I'm not certain that a petition can call for a town meeting, only an objection to a town council issue. I'd have to check on that. But I think it, as Barbara's point is there, and Christine certainly is, how do you organize discussion of these 5 recommendations so that everybody gets a chance, and in this town we try and give everybody a chance who wants to express an opinion to express an opinion on the proposals, and possibly as well the council can decide, what their initial thinking is, or do they want to wait and hear all the input before expressing any intentions? I think this is the appropriate time to have that discussion as to how to proceed on these issues, which basically is what Christine said at the outset. And Barbara said that, she'd like to discuss it.
So everyone is here, I believe, to talk about the town hall name. So I do think we have to discuss each of these issues separately. What would happen if we put that first on the agenda and open it up to the public forum for that purpose? And let that be our first step in the process.
Barbara, my only concern about that is that we would, it's about 8:45 right now. We would spend like another couple of hours, maybe a little less than that, talking, so that everybody can be heard about their opinions about the proposal to rename town hall, but we wouldn't get anywhere else with the other recommendations. And my preference would be to sort of, get some agreement with the other recommendations first before we tackle the naming of the town hall.
I think when we put
recommendation.
When we put in the agenda that we're going to talk about this topic and all these people make time in their schedule to come out, I think we have an obligation to address it.
Is everybody here for that one recommendation? Is that really so?
I don't think that's so, because someone just said in the chat that they feel like I can get the chat here. Some people object to one or more of the other proposals is what was said in the chat. So I think there are people here for other recommendations as well.
Uh-huh. Okay, I see someone else just said they were here for 3 of them. And John, I had technical difficulties. I apologize to everybody. My computer just said there's an error and we have to restart. So I don't know if you asked me something or what happened in that interim. I mean,
Yeah.
was I supposed to do something, or I'm sorry, everybody. Damn computer.
Resisting the temptation to make some sort of facetious comments. I was going to ask you to just briefly summarize your transmittal letter of the for the recommendations. Instead, I summarized it, and we have arrived at immediately how do we go about handling the
Okay.
recommendations. So that's
Okay. Well, I don't want to be redundant.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. So look, we can certainly take comment until everybody runs out of gas, or we can set a time limit and take comments in some order, which I have no idea how that order will be determined for tonight. I think anticipating that we won't want to, we can just start and see how many people we hear from. But my thinking is that, all of this has come up. The recommendations were crafted and approved a week and a half ago, as far as I recall, maybe more, something like that. And so that's all the time anybody's really had to think about them. And some people have certainly spent a lot of time, and we have a lot of written comments that have been certainly generated from this. But that's not very much time. So I would absolutely recommend that the council allow additional time for others to form opinions and be able to see what the opinions of those who have written. Christine's thrown them up on the website. I'm sure she'll make every effort to keep doing that. I will make every effort to keep dropping them into the single folder for this meeting. It currently, I think, includes everybody's comments. So anybody can follow what's going on without having to ask me and listen to this entire meeting to see what they were and get a much better sense from the written ones. But what can we do tonight? There's been a proposal. Christine has brought it up, and I, at some point, the council should decide whether or not to schedule a separate time, a town meeting, if you will, special town meeting, on these recommendations, one or all, which would be for everybody to come and give their verbal commentary. Written commentary is always encouraged in addition, and then having heard everything, the council can take up discussion of each one of these proposals. Alternatively, if you feel that some of the proposals can be taken up more with far less necessity to hear comment, and the council could go forward with that. My thought is that it would be preferable, given the number of people who want to weigh in on at least the McCatherine Hall naming issue, that a town meeting sounds like a very good idea, where on all of the proposals that will represent the biggest opportunity for everyone to weigh in, the council can then look at each of these proposals, having all of the public input at hand. But
okay, so my input here is that we could do what the council has done in the past, be bold and survey the council and see how they want to vote. Or we could do what Barbara wants to do and just like listen to as long as we can. Everybody's here. I'm sure, there's some people that really want to voice their opinion. I'd rather not vote tonight and listen to what everybody has to say.
Yeah,
But
I
11
would
o'clock
say,
is a cutoff.
oh gosh. I would say we've had comments coming in all day. I have not had time to read all of the comments. I have not had time to really think deeply about this issue. So there's no way that I am going to be able to vote on anything tonight. Or I mean, unless I was forced to. But that my preference would be to not. So I would like to hear people's opinions and get a chance to read people's opinions that they've sent in before making any decisions. Yeah, but we definitely need to set a time limit.
Yeah. As Nan is saying right now, we need to set a time limit on comments. And I'm wondering, John, if we should go if we're going to encourage people to talk tonight about the recommendations, should we encourage people to just say, okay, let's talk about the first recommendation and we'll give it 15 minutes or less if we need to, and then go on to or is everybody just going to talk about renaming of the town hall in that recommendation?
So this is Barbara. The reason why I said to give people time to talk about town hall is because the comments that we've been receiving have mostly been about town hall.
Yeah.
We've gotten a few that are more broad, but even those comments address town hall as well. So that is why I felt like that was the most important thing to address first.
Barb and John, do we want to tonight talk about or allow people to talk about their opinions about the renaming of town hall, and then if there is extra time tonight, have them talk about their opinions about the other recommendations?
Yes, that would be my thinking, that like we would finish with the town hall comments, then pick what the next topic was that we wanted to hear comments on, but do it not, this topic, then that topic, not jump between topics, but stick with one topic, then stick with a second topic.
That's what I want to avoid, is just jumping
So the
among the
proposal
topics.
the proposal is to start taking some comments about the renaming of McCatherine Hall. And if there's any, first set a time limit. If there's any time left, then we can take comments on any of the others or whatever. And at that time, after the time has passed, decide how to move forward at future discussions and meetings. And before anybody says anything, Mary, we haven't heard from you.
Yeah.
So, and of course we haven't heard from Rob, who was unable to make this meeting.
Yeah.
He never has any opinions, but we've all at least asked him. And I am being facetious. He, of course, will have an opinion as well.
Of course you will.
Mary, you got on mute, but
this is Megan O'Connell. This is today is the first day that I've really had a chance, and it sounds like to read the results and the comments. I don't know if that's unique, if I just been out of the loop. I heard Joan say that some of these comments and summaries were new. Is that correct?
Yes, and she was commenting on the diversity, the survey.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. This is the first time that
the survey has the summaries of basically summaries of each of the sessions that were done. So if you didn't attend those, you would have had to have seen Paula's summary notes or heard the discussion. So yes, it's new, but that only in regards to the survey.
So Mary, you're muted, and John.
Yeah.
There you go.
I forgot to unmute myself when I started to talk.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've been listening to this, and my question is, and I know that a lot of people showed up tonight because they wanted to state their opinion, but if we're going to have a whole meeting that is going to be devoted to this? Are we going to be redoing everything again when we come to the town meeting? I'm just not sure the purpose of doing both. And, you know, I hate for people who came, but, you know, this is, maybe look at this as an opportunity to have introduced this to everybody. People know that it's out there. People have an opportunity to look at many of the comments. A lot of them are showing up on the listserv. Christina's gotten them all on the beautifully on the website that are easy to find. And I just think give people time to digest it and do it. You know, I just think it's redundant to do it all now and then have a town meeting and do it all over again. I'm not sure what that accomplishes, because,
Thank
you
you,
know,
Mary.
at
That
the
was
town
the point.
meeting, we will figure out what people's opinion is with
Yep.
a little bit more time to look at the issue.
Well,
So-
we haven't agreed to a
Barbara,
town meeting yet.
Right, yeah, and
Oh.
because this is why I want to hear from people, because so far, the overwhelming majority of the opinion has been against it.
Mhm.
And if that continues to be the case, and I don't think we should stop comment tonight, you know, because for all the reasons people said, time is too short. But if the continuing comment is no, 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 then I kind of would wonder why we would have a town meeting for that. So that's why I want to hear more from people to help make that decision about whether a town meeting is really appropriate.
I totally agree with you, Barbara.
Right, and the other reason is, you know, the people who have come to this meeting, they're speaking to the council, and yes, we are very important, but they're also speaking to everybody else here. So they have a chance to verbalize, if they haven't already written a letter, which then they'd have to count on somebody reading it. So they're actually speaking to everyone. So and lastly, repetition isn't necessarily bad, especially since this is kind of the opening discussion. So since everyone's here, I would agree we ought to allow some time for comments. Even though, Mary, you're right, you would expect that most of those would be repeated at another session specifically to hear everyone's comments.
And also, John,
I do agree with what you say, though. I mean, it does seem that the majority of the letters are,
yeah.
you know, have
No,
one
it's-
opinion.
And it seems like there's a lot of concern about the divisiveness taking place within the town. And if tonight, if we can all listen to what everybody has to say, if it can help us get a little bit more on the same page, I think that'll be really helpful, because, you know, those of us who have been here for a while have seen some really ugly situations, not even relevant. The dog park was nothing compared with some of the other events where the town got split. You know, we're like a big family. And so I think it'll be a good way for us to kind of think more in harmony with each other.
I just saw a thing in the chat though that said, please don't assume that everyone here, that these are the only people who have opinions to express. And so, you know, I don't know. I mean, I know you're not going to vote, but whether to have a town meeting or not based on just the people here, I don't know if that's really representative or not.
No, it wouldn't just be the people here, but people who also contact us outside of this meeting as well. If there's a time for them to be communicating with us, then we'll have time to hear from them, and they'll have had
So you
time.
won't, so
review
you
that.
won't decide whether or not you'll have a town meeting tonight after people speak.
No.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
this is Christine. Bob Kristen just asked, where are the comments on the website? John, can you make me a, what's it called? Not a participant,
Co-host.
Co-host or
Sorry,
whatever, so I can
what do you
just,
want to do?
I just want to show people where on the website they can read other people's comments.
Oh, but maybe, okay, I can let you.
Somebody just put it in the chat.
Paul actually has the the URL right here. But I'd still like to show people how to get from the home page to read the comments.
Okay, hold on.
Thank you.
Okay,
Okay, am I,
yep,
What?
if you made co-host, you're good.
God, I don't see that at all.
Mhm.
Just try and share.
Yeah, I don't even have a thing that says share.
Yeah, you always have a thing.
Okay. Okay, I'm just gonna tell you because I
I can
don't
do
have
it.
anything that says share. You go from the you go from the home page, and I always tell people don't ever search on the home page because the search is still not very good. But if you go to the top of the home page, you'll see a menu that says like, yeah, about the Grove community town government, right? So you click on town government and then you click on mayor and town council, right? And then under mayor and town council, on the right side, you see this written testimony and correspondence. And the second bullet says from town residents to the town government. So you click on that. And then that at the top of the page, it shows you like what's included on this page and what's not. And if you scroll down, you will see all the letters from town residents to the town government and what the topic is. And you can see all of the ones that have to do with the proposal to rename town hall. So that's how you get to that page that allows you to see what all your, your fellow residents. And I'll tell you, I have been moved is almost too strong a word, but what people have said about the proposal to rename town hall has been very thoughtful. And so I would really encourage everyone to review the last, I think 12 or 15 emails that talk about the proposal to rename town hall or the RASEC recommendations.
Christine, somebody mentioned that when you click on it, it doesn't open.
What doesn't open?
Carrie
Yeah,
said
you click on under item number and link on the left side.
That'll work.
That's where the
Yeah.
link
This
is. So
one,
you click
it's this
on
one.
that. Yeah, you click on that and then it should open.
Did.
Thank you. Okay, she got it.
Yeah, the three rightmost columns are not clickable, but the left column is clickable. So just click on that and then any of those items, just click on one of them, John.
I
And
have, but I have to stop sharing and I have to reshare
okay.
the one I just brought up, which is Georgette's. So there,
Yeah, there you go.
it opened immediately and
Mhm.
here it is.
And I have to say that that I'm now speaking not as the webmaster, but as a council member, that we received probably 5 or 6 comments on the proposal to rename town hall, even before we had received the RASIC recommendations. And so I was like, whoa, hold on, wait a minute, let's see what the RASIC recommendation is first before we start reacting to that. And so clearly, this is a very important issue to a lot of town residents. And I actually look forward to receiving a lot more comments on that issue and on the other RASIC recommendations.
Pardon me, but where are we? Where are we at this point? Either recommendation, either comments for tonight or comments during a special town meeting. I mean,
Well, tonight we
Which is
only
it?
have so
Which
much
is
time
it?
left. Nancy said we have only a few time. At this point, well, okay. Do you want to hear comments and then decide what to do for future meetings? Or we can hear comments and decide on Monday, the 11th meeting for future meetings. Don't have to actually do anything today. But I think we should now take some time. I think the consensus was to hear from at least some of the people at this meeting. How late do you want those to go? It's 9:05. Is 9:45 enough time? Is 40 minutes, or do you want to give it almost an hour? What do you want to do?
Joe, why don't you take a survey and ask whoever wants to speak, put
Well-
their hands up so you can see.
I think 9:45 is appropriate, John.
Perfect.
I agree.
All right,
How-
9:45 it is, which means hopefully everybody's comments will be cogent. If not brief, at least cogent.
So I think we need to time the comments because we need to be fair. So we need to decide how much time everybody gets and we need a timer.
I'm happy to be a timer, and also I'm wondering if we can prioritize people who have not sent in written comments, because we're going to have a chance to read those written comments, but that's just a thought. But I am happy to be a timer.
Well,
Then-
that's a good thought.
And I recommend maybe 3 minutes per person. Does that sound fair?
That would be 12 comments or 13 comments, unless people were shorter than 3. So, all right, fine, 2 or 3 minutes. Let's just go with
Let's
hopefully
do 2.5.
but 3. You'll be cut off at 3. Okay, and I think that was a good suggestion by Eva. If you've submitted written comments and it is on Christine's list or in my folder, which means it's available, then it's not been lost in the ether. We already had one lost in the ether, but which can happen. But so let's go with anyone who has not yet submitted written comments. So please raise your hands.
Okay, I'm just gonna go ahead and start.
Okay.
First of all, there have been 3 Mayor McCatherines during my lifetime. Roy McCatherine, his son Don, who, by the way, my brother reminded me that he was a member of the Duke Ellington Society, and he had meetings in his house. Very mixed meetings, by the way. Okay, and then his granddaughter-in-law. So I just want to mention 3, and then I also I would say that it's like you can't change the past, but you can go forward. And I think that the McCatherine family has done plenty for this town, and I think it's probably on the plus side, I would say. A plus. Okay, so that's the range of my comment.
Okay, thank you. In that case, we'll go to the first hand that came up and is therefore gets priority. That'd be Liz. Liz Everhart? No? Okay. If you're talking, Liz, there you go. You have to
Yes,
unmute.
sorry, it's Jay actually, because I've sent in written comments.
Yeah,
Ah.
I actually just want to make a quick comment about the shared use path, because otherwise it will probably get buried in all the other comments. So there are really only a few of us who have worked for years on this, and I'm happy as one of those to have others participate in it. But I feel it has to be in a constructive engagement with Montgomery County. We're very far along this, and what I think Barbara, who I've worked with on this, and I would appreciate would be to, particularly in light of the RACIC's mission, is to work with the county and apply pressure to get this done.
Interesting. I gotta find out why that is.
But how does it?
Anyway, so that's all I have to say. I just wanted to, I don't think there'll be many other comments about this, but I think it has to be in a constructive engagement way with the county.
County.
Okay, thank you.
That's it.
Okay.
And also, we should just say that if you're not the one talking right now, make sure you're muted.
I will mute them as fast as I see who's come up. Next one on my screen is Ted Stanky. Ted.
Hi. Well, first, I think it might be helpful to clarify what the recommendation is and what it's not. The recommendation is to consider returning the name of the community center back to Washington Grove Town Hall, and that this process of consideration should include reviewing the included presentations, which were made available to the council, having educational discussions with town residents, gathering feedback, and engaging residents with the decision. So it wasn't the intention of RASIC to suggest that we have a town meeting, next week or next month to vote on the issue, recognizing that a decision like that requires, in our view, education and discussion and soliciting people's opinions and involving the town in the decision. So I just think it's useful to keep that in mind, that is the recommendation. The second thing that I would say is that it derives from the resolution that the council passed in apologizing and distancing the town from the institutional racism of the past. And to me, this is a further bringing up this topic and considering it is in that spirit of distancing ourselves from that time and the institutional racism of the town at that time. And it's not, to me, a personal referendum on the character of Annie McCatherine, right? But giving the town an evergreen name that is not associated with the period in the past that we have decided to move on from. Thank you.
Okay, let me make one comment on, I think, Ted, you were somehow implying that a town meeting would lead to a vote, that while special town meetings, there can be votes. The votes are advisory to the council. The council must first make a decision, pass some sort of resolution, an ordinance. If a meeting is held on that action, a town meeting, and if the town meeting votes to against the decision, then the decision is overturned. But town meetings, other than the town meeting, the annual town meeting, do not pass any legislation. They do not make decisions. The council makes the decision. A certain type of town meeting can overrule that decision, but it can't make a new substitute, another decision for it. So the town meeting we are talking about would be a forum to provide for comments by any resident on any of the issues, the RASIC recommendations. Someone could call for a vote. The meeting doesn't have to do that. The vote is non-binding. The vote is purely optional. So just want to make it clear everyone understands that the town meeting process is very powerful, but it doesn't make legislation. It can only overrule actions of the council. Electing new councilors is your way to get new action. Okay. All right, Larry, you're next. We've heard from you on this is a new topic. Go ahead.
Okay, I've got just a couple of words that I'd like to say regarding the issue of McCatherine Hall. And my notion is that we're framing it in a binary way. It's either it remains McCatherine Hall or it is something else with no mention of McCatherine. And I've been following over the past couple of years, I've been following a little bit about how communities have dealt with Civil War persons. And at times they've come up with some ways in which they recognize, for example, the historical significance of Civil War leaders, but yet they remove them one way or another symbolically or physically from places of prominence. Rockville, for example, attempted to do that some years ago. It had a Confederate general right in the middle of town, and it started moving that statue around to various places. And I believe now it's somewhere in some museum with appropriate information about this particular person. At any rate, I wonder if we can convert this from an either-or choice to some more imaginative way of dealing with someone who is clearly neither fish nor fowl, neither white nor black. That is Roy McCatherine, and perhaps that will open up some ways of thinking about this that will leave us not at odds with one another. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Larry. Next on my list is Sarah Coburn.
Hi, thank you for a chance to say something. I want to add my voice to those who are supporting taking this opportunity for healing, for doing something affirmative that it helps our relationships with our neighbors. And I didn't know Mr. McCatherine. I'm not in any place, nor do I have any interest in judging his life or his legacy. I'm not sure that the honor of having a town hall named for you is understood to be something in perpetuity. It might be that we want to take the opportunity to honor someone else in a way that is good for our relationships with our neighbors, good for our healing as a community. So again, I don't want to judge Mr. McCatherine about whom I have insufficient information, but I do want us to look forward and think about the ways that we can contribute to that healing with our neighbors and within ourselves.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. I have Audrey, presumably Audrey Mastery. Audrey?
That's me. Hi, John. I'll take video off just a moment so you can at least see me. Oh, there I am, somewhere there. There we go. You can't see me. Sorry about that. You see my foot. Anyway, I'd like to support keeping McCatherine Hall as is. I've been here at least almost 30 years. I've been very pleased to be in the town, and I find it a very welcoming place for all colours, be they have purple spots all over them, or if they come from a different country. I find it offensive to the families whose name is McCatherine. It's very insensitive what you're doing. This is just not done. I'm sorry. I don't agree with it. I want the hall to remain McCatherine Hall. Thank you. That's the end of me.
Okay. Thank you, Audrey. All right, Joan, I can't believe you haven't sent any comments yet, but go ahead. Yes.
I don't want sympathy for the McCatherine family to be a reason considered in this. It's a consideration for the true legacy of Washington Grove. And the opposing slide presentation is full of what I would call lies. Roy had no part in perpetrating the racial covenants. He had no authority to go within a private deed and change a covenant that was legal at the time. And this Rasic argument is using him as a scapegoat for the maybe half the deeds in town in 1937 that might have had these racial covenants put in by the deed owners. And just as another detail, there was one person in town who was a real estate investor who owned many of these properties, and those deed covenants were on his properties. He could have owned up to a third of the properties in the town in 1937. So to even associate Roy McCatherine with those racial covenants is, to me, a blatant lie. And I did put a presentation. I didn't want to attack each one of the misstatements that were made by the two authors of the opposing presentation. I can do that. I would be happy to do that. I did it previously when all these arguments were presented before the resolution. And is this going to be an annual occurrence? But instead of going into this divisive, hateful rabbit hole, I decided to present a view of Roy McCatherine, whom I knew personally. And you can say I have a vested interest because I'm his granddaughter, but this is, I don't want you to use my family as an excuse not to consider this. And the statement that we might feel more ownership of the town hall than any other citizen town is absolutely outrageous.
Okay, well, we won't be changing it to Mahaffey Hall then anytime soon.
Heavens no, I was babysitting my younger brothers and sisters when the decision to name the town hall was made. I wasn't even there. I was only 13.
Sure.
No. I only put my name on the slideshow so that you would know that I did have a vested interest in it and no one else was picking up the mantle. But I have
So Joan, I'm curious, when was the name, just a history question, when was the name changed to McCatherine Hall? Does anybody know?
1958, after Roy.
58?
Yeah, at the council meeting after he was made mayor. And it was called the Assembly Hall from the time it was built until 1954, when the Methodist Church moved out into their new church property. But until then, they pretty much used it for their services and for their Sunday school. And town records were actually stored at my grandfather's house rather than in the hall. And even town council meetings were held in private homes before that time. The town meeting was held in the Assembly Hall, but the Assembly Hall was the historic name up until the name was changed in 1958.
This is Hutch. I don't know if I can interject, but according to Phil Edwards' book, it was originally the town hall before it was named the Assembly Hall. Is that correct?
No, it was named the Assembly Hall. It was not used as an official center for town business until 1954.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. We have Joe with his hand up, and then I see Marilyn. Joe? Joe is either not, you have to unmute.
Each unmute.
I can't ask him to unmute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, I think this whole exercise is unnecessary. It's creating a problem where a problem doesn't exist. Roy McCatherine did not own slaves. If we take his name off of the town hall, then we logically and must necessarily change the name of the town because it's named for a slaveholder. So this puts us on a road of years of divisiveness and fighting, and it is absolutely unnecessary. My parents' house at 123 Grove Road had a covenant in it not to sell to Catholics, Jews, or Blacks. Our family was Catholic, and currently living in that house is my niece and her African-American husband. And the house was sold twice with covenants that were violated by selling to Catholics and then by selling to an African-American. So the whole issue of covenants is a phony, petty little issue, and 90% of the deeds in this country had covenants like that at that time. I did real estate settlements for 25 or 30 years, and most of the old deeds that had been in place for a long period of time had racial covenants in them. So if we're going to condemn one or two people, then everyone that's doing that needs to go back and look at their own grandparents and great-grandparents and see if they're not casting stones at their own family. Okay, this is an unnecessary, divisive exercise, and it's heading us down a path of lots of trouble. So if you take Roy McCathron's name off the town hall, the next thing will be the name of the town. And if it's not, it's totally illogical, and there's no other path. This is unnecessary. It should be stopped in its tracks. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, Joe. So next was Marilyn Fry. I always say Frey, but it's
How long you know me? A couple things. I keep hearing we should change the name back to Washington Grove Town Hall. It was never Washington Grove Town Hall. I've lived here 75 years. It was Assembly Hall. If you look at the side of the building, it still says Assembly Hall. It got named for Roy McCathron when I was still in high school. Roy McCathron was a good man. He did not own a single slave, unlike the person who this town is named for. I agree with Joe. First thing we need to do is change the name of this town if we're going to go changing the name of anything that has any racist comment, whether it's true or not. Most of you who are talking about this and fighting for it never met Roy McCathron, but you're sitting there in judgment of him. Also, just in passing, Assembly Hall was the church until I was in like 4th or 5th grade. It was not used for town business at all. It was used for the church. Anyhow, that's my 2 cents.
Okay, thank you, Marilyn. Next is Philip.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi. So I might be a little biased because my wife is on the committee, but what I'm hoping is that the town council considers this. All started with the resolution that was passed about what do we do about our racist past. And so this committee has been trying to do the best they can to come up with some of those ideas and solutions. And that's what they've been presenting here. I know changing the name of the hall is radical. I get a sense most people won't vote for it. But what I want is the council to take a look at what has been presented, because what is presented is in the public eye. And so we're not making, I don't think the council should be talking necessarily about changing the name, or everyone's caught up in the name of the hall or not. But I think what the council is going to have to do in looking at these presentations, and you have from both sides, what do you do about your racist past? And so this committee has come forward with some suggestions. And the committee worked hard. The committee voted in a vast majority to move these forward. And I understand people think it's insensitive, but I know that people on this committee, especially my wife, and they did not make these things, these resolutions, these recommendations to be insensitive. So I do want to just point out the Race Committee has a hard job. These are just recommendations, and I would hope that people understand they're bringing these forward because they're trying to address what the council passed on the resolution to address our racist past. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Phil. All right, Paul Thorne. Stop.
Thorne Keziah.
All right, Mr. Thorne Keziah, go ahead.
So first I have a question of protocol. I know you all are big on protocol. I live just outside the boundaries of Washington Grove on Bounding Bend, but I'm not technically a resident. So I wanted to double check before I spoke whether I have the floor to speak at this time.
Council? Hearing no objections, go ahead.
Thank you. I
Oh,
appreciate
wait,
it.
before you do,
Yep.
Patty Klein just asked the question about, can Patty just ask a question? Because I think it's relevant. Patty?
Hey, good evening. I didn't want to interrupt your commentary period. My question is, who voted on the RACIC committee, and were these voters all town residents in accordance with our town charter and our ordinances?
I mean, that question can be answered, Patty, but personally, I think it's totally irrelevant.
Well, I don't think it's irrelevant.
I disagree.
May I'll
But
explain
I don't
why.
want to go
Okay.
off on a tangent. I asked the question. It can be addressed by the council later.
And then I'll tell you what's irrelevant about it.
Okay.
Paula? You have to unmute.
Go ahead.
Sorry, did you say Paul or Paula?
I'm sorry, Paul, we'll be back to you.
That I understand.
Okay, so the question is what was the question again? Who
Voted on
on the recommendation? Who
Yes.
voted on the recommendation? Is that correct? The recommendation work group voted on the recommendation, but they were ratified by the whole RACIC, the voting members of RACIC, the general RACIC committee. They were ratified.
Well, there was only five people voting. Is that correct? That's what I read. Three were
voting-
for, one abstained, and one was against. Those were the numbers that I had seen.
Okay, are you talking about?
That was the recommendation committee, not RACIC
Yeah,
itself.
you're talking about the work group. Is that what you're talking about, I think? You're talking about the recommendation work group, and that was the vote, but then it was ratified by the voting members at the general meeting.
I think, Paul, I think the question is the voting
Sorry, I'm not-
members, the voting members of RACIC, are they all town residents, or does that include some non-town residents was
It
the question?
includes some non-town residents. I mean, everybody is invited to an open meeting. And but according to the guidelines of RACIC, if you attend 2 consecutive meetings and express an interest, you can be a member. So open
There's a
meetings.
difference
say that
between being a
anyone can-
member and being voting town resident. That's just my comment.
I'm sorry, say that again. I didn't hear everything, Pam.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Paul. There's a difference between being a member of a town committee, and generally most of our town committees are made up of town residents. I don't think we have any clarification on that at this time in our charter ordinances, but that's different than actually being able to vote. If you're a non-resident of the town, that's my concern, is people who are non-residents of our town are influencing and to some extent helping to make decisions about what happens in our town. And I don't see the fact that any of us as town residents can go to Gaithersburg or Germantown or any other place where we're not a resident and have voting privileges. So I just think that that might be something the town council might want to consider going forward. If it's not clear in our charter and ordinances, I think it is, but it's subject to interpretation. Thanks.
Well, that's
Okay.
another issue, but go on.
I made a categorical statement that I thought that was irrelevant. Let me explain why. The recommendations are very specific. And to me, a recommendation to the town council or to the town ought to be evaluated on its merits. It's a process argument as to, oh, who made this recommendation? Was it all town residents? Was it all men? Was it all women? Was everybody consulted on the committee? All of those things are process oriented. And some people make an, if we had a huge amount of business and it was constantly an issue as to have all of it, has the process been followed before we spend any time on it, I would have a different opinion. But my opinion now is that these are very serious and thoughtful proposals. They may not be popular. That's what we're trying to determine, and whether or not they have any they resonate with the council or in fact with the town. So yeah, you know, you can talk about, oh, somebody else was part of the process, but I don't think that affects the merits of the proposal. And if this town is willing to reject proposals simply because somebody outside of town, think about that. We were talking about inclusivity here. I guess that may only include people who live in town. I think that's a huge mistake, and that's why I declared it irrelevant. It's my personal opinion. You may all have your own, of course. All right, back to Paul.
So you asked us about whether Paul should speak. I think it's great that he speaks, but I think that the town residents should be allowed to speak first. And if he's not, if they've all spoken, that's great.
I haven't seen anybody else with their hands up.
Well, there you go. It's a win-win.
Fine.
I did intentionally wait to see it until the hands faltered before I put my hand up to give my 2 cents. I do definitely appreciate that you all have these meetings that you're included. I'm been connected with some discussions with Washington Grove, and the more I see the democratic processes, the more I see the patience of the town council meeting members to sift through and put 2 cents in and get input on little to small things. It really impresses me. You know, I've loved Washington Grove from the get-go because of the forest. You know, that's one of the reasons we were excited to be nearby. But I continue to be impressed by the town itself and its founding. I am a member of RASIC, and I continue to appreciate the chance to participate in those discussions and look at how to be a part of Washington Grove, trying not to have such high walls, but be connected with the surrounding community and look at ways that the past has been difficult or damaging to some of the people that were living outside the Grove. When I see the recommendation to rename McCatherine Hall, I think it's a disservice to aim the main focus on trying to discredit Roy McCatherine. I do think that he, like everybody, is a complex figure, and from what I've seen, especially as far as his intentions and his dedication to the town, it was much more good, much more sacrificing his time and his resources and making an effort to build a town and lay the foundation for a town that has lasted until now. I think with renaming the town, a strong emphasis is not trying to discredit Roy McCatherine or say that he is not worthy of having a building named after him. But rather that Roy McCatherine is symbolic of the time that surrounded the founding of Washington Grove, which had some excellent things and has resulted in a town that has a unique history and a unique character. And some of that uniqueness has been from the exclusivity, from the high walls, from being relatively cut off from the surrounding community. And so if Washington Grove now, the residents of Washington Grove are wanting to be more intentional about reaching out to and being connected with surrounding communities and addressing wrongs that may have happened in the past. I think renaming McCatherine Hall is not a way, again, not trying to disparage Roy McCatherine, but it's a way of signifying that that is not the core identity of the town, but that the town is trying to seek a character that is more that is more inclusive and connected with the surrounding communities.
Okay, thank you for that, that poll. We've got Ann Phillips next.
Yes, hi, just a couple of comments. We as a family have not written a letter in, but we're very interested in the topic. I think it's very painful to even consider changing the name of the hall, and I feel some of that pain myself. I can understand it'd be very disturbing to people. But this is like challenges to democracy. We have to struggle and listen to all different viewpoints and try to come out of it stronger, come out of our disputes stronger. And I think that this is the kind of question that every community is dealing with, and we're not immune. Washington Grove is not immune from needing to look at the past and analyze our public buildings naming, the process of naming our public buildings. So I think a lot of people's outrage, I understand, as that, you know, the fear of changing something unnecessarily, but I think this is a process the towns have to go through. And I hope everyone can be patient with it and just recognize that it's valuable. It's valuable to look. And just because the name of the town hall is being questioned, that doesn't automatically assume that the town Washington Grove, that name would be changed. I don't think that's logical. Yes, every naming has a context, but each case should be looked at on a case-by-case basis. So I don't agree that that changing the name of the hall, not that I'm in favor of that. As I said, we haven't written a letter, and it's a very complex issue, but I just wanted to make those statements.
Okay, thank you, Ann. Charlie Charlstrom is next.
Wasn't gonna comment, but I want to echo a couple of things. Like Tad wanted to make sure that we understood what the recommendation is and it isn't. When the recommendation came to that final meeting of full RASIC and was voted on by the voting members only, and I'm one of those, I was disturbed and concerned because of the feeling of it pinpointing Roy McCatherine, who I have a great deal of knowledge and awareness and appreciation of, learned so much by my close association for so many years working with his son, Don McCatherine, and learning about the relationships and actually participating in the relationships between Emery Grove and Washington Grove as we found joint reasons to go together. And we literally moved the Flower Hill Shopping Center to be closer to where people needed grocery shopping. I was part of that and worked with Bub Duvall and of Emery Grove and Don McCatherine. The three of us were a team on that. Anyway, separate from that, when that recommendation came forward, it was recommending that RASIC recommend the name change. But look carefully, it does not say that anymore. I thought the best that I could do when that came forward was to help the committee work through a process whereby we change that recommendation. It says to consider, because after it had been out and exposed and shared like this, I felt like the best thing we could do was change it so that, in fact, there is an education process of the awareness of the town and the relationship. And that's what could come out of this, that the council could make sure there was an education process. It wasn't calling for a town meeting, but it was calling for consider this, and by doing it as the conditions as Tad expressed, it would be an education process. So I felt pleased that I was able to help in that, and I didn't join Joan in voting against it, although I regretted that, but I was afraid we'd come back with a recommendation that would be explicit in recommending a name change, and it doesn't. I just want to make sure you understand that it does not recommend the name change. And there's some wonderful, wonderful material to help reinforce that. We must look forward, but we've got to build on a very successful path. And And I've immersed a good portion of my life on those covenants. I know the background of those perhaps better than anyone else. I've spent literally months working on them and great progress lately. Anyway, that's enough.
All right, thank you, Charlie. I have Joe with his hand up. Hold up, Joe. Anybody else? Joe has already spoken on the recommendations.
Yeah, John, I just want to reiterate that if you change the name of McCatherine Hall, it is totally illogical not to then want to change the name of the town. To do that opens up years of contention and disagreements and bitterness, and that's what's going to happen. And you can say it's not going to happen, but if you look at it logically, to change the name of the town because Roy McCatherine didn't do anything to get rid of restrictive covenants, and I'm not saying that that's true, but if that's the accusation, then why keep the town name for a slavehold? It makes no sense. And there is no purpose to be accomplished by going back through all of this. And I'm sorry to say it because I have great respect for some of the people involved on the other side of this issue, including Paula. But there's an element of virtue signaling in this that is inappropriate and that inflicts the desire for the virtue signaling on everybody else. And the town should not have to suffer that. And this is purposeless. It's going to lead to nothing but trouble.
Okay, Joe. Linda. And Linda will be the last. We've reached our witching hour on this discussion.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I have not submitted a letter myself. I've lived in the town for 37 years. My husband, Warren Winter, was born here and pretty much lived here in his entire life. I think I can speak for him as well. I read a lot of the comments, then the letters that came in, and I think they were all very well written and well spoken. My concern is I looked at the PowerPoint presentation, both of them, and at one point, I don't know exactly where it said, we're not trying to vilify Roy McCatherine, but then they proceeded to vilify Roy McCatherine. And I just really object to the tone of the PowerPoint presentations and some other comments. And I know that this is extremely painful to the McCatherine family, and I don't support changing the name. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Linda. Thanks everybody for your comments and all of the rest of you who have been listening. So we're back to a council discussion as to how to move forward. Let's just address the elephant in the room. The proposal has been that perhaps the discussion of these proposals would best be encompassed in a town meeting, special town meeting, to give everyone a chance to verbally express their views, and after which the council could then decide how to move forward on each of these recommendations. So my suggestion is that we get a consensus on whether to go for a town meeting or not.
My suggestion is that we're going to meet in 2 weeks. We have this discussion then after we digest this.
I agree with Peter.
I do too. There's a lot of things to think about, and not necessarily going to a town meeting, but just kind of, maybe look at it again. And I, from this discussion, I have a couple of questions that I would be interested in asking the committee just for clarification that I don't feel prepared to right now.
Christine?
I'm ready to set a date for a town meeting in about 4 weeks tonight. I don't feel like we need to discuss again in our regular early March meeting, whether we should have a town meeting. I think we should just go ahead and schedule one.
That leaves you, Eva.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to understand. So was the suggestion that we decide at the March meeting whether or not to have a town meeting? Or that at the March meeting, we try to address the recommendations? Because I think if we're going to have a town meeting, we should go ahead and just decide that we're going to have a town meeting, like Christine said, and set a date.
I was thinking that we would be able to reach a decision without having a town meeting by having a little bit of time to discuss it.
Yeah, this is
That was
Barbara.
my
I mean,
thought.
at town meeting, I mean, most of the recommendations are not really something that you would expect to debate in a town meeting. This is the only one, and I'm not even sure we need a town meeting for this. If we continue to get feedback from town residents, I don't know that we need to call a special town meeting for this. So I would rather continue the discussion during our next town council meeting, have this on the agenda, have some time to go through the other recommendations as well, and see how far we can get in that meeting. And it's possible that we could wrap it up in that meeting if we feel like we have enough information and enough input. And if not, we can figure out what to do after that.
Well, is it yes or no? I mean, I feel like this committee has come up with a lot of suggestions and a lot of things that we should be thinking about. And for instance, Charlie saying that it was not to rename the town hall, but to consider it. And I would be interested in, considering it. What does that mean in terms of us moving forward? I think looking back and trying to change things that we can't change isn't going to get us anywhere, but the conversation could maybe lead us to, something more practical that we could agree on going forward. But I hate to just say, no, we don't accept any of these resolutions and then what? I mean, I think there should be something that comes out of all this work and very considered look at the town.
And you're saying that the town meeting would do that?
No, I not necessarily. I mean, I feel like if we, as the council, could, digest some of this stuff and have another conversation about it.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that instead
No,
of
I
making
agree
a
with you,
decision
Peter.
tonight. Oh, okay. Let me argue with you then.
Stop arguing with someone.
Okay,
who
I'm going to
agrees.
switch my position.
So I
Okay.
would prefer to use our next regular town meeting in early March to discuss other topics like ADUs or dwellings that are not being maintained properly, and to go ahead and have a separate town meeting to discuss all of the RASIC recommendations. We have a lot on our plate right now, and I don't necessarily want to. I'm afraid if we discuss the RASIC recommendations at the next regular town meeting, that we'll never get to any of the other stuff we need to talk about.
I do think you're right there. There are some other more important things.
Yeah,
I mean, does this need to be discussed? I mean, does a resolution need to be made within, the next couple of weeks on this?
No, of course not. And I wouldn't think so. There's, the council can choose to defer discussion. I want to reiterate what Christine was pointing out. There is to do justice to the ADU discussion and the variety of other business, there wouldn't be a whole lot of time for
Stormwater management, RFP.
Exactly.
And we're already talking about that meeting potentially starting at 6:15.
That's right, with the closed session. So it would be, we could do it, but it would be very long. The reason the town meeting proposal, the town meeting proposal is like an adjunct to another council meeting discussion. So you can do both, or do the open town resident discussion prior to a council discussion. I hear some sentiment that some of you may feel that it was maybe aside from the McCatherine Hall or maybe including it, recommendation that might be able to conclude further action. And we could do that tonight. We could go through each one and ask whether the council feels what they would like to do about each one. And we haven't addressed any of the others really, other than the hall issue. And so having said all of that, it certainly makes sense to either toss it to a town meeting for comprehensive input, or bring it up at another council meeting and decide how to move forward. Given that Mary's right, nobody's thought, probably not many of you, some of you may want to consider exactly how to move forward. So do we need to do a vote on unless it sounded like there was not an interest in proposing a town meeting, but we could do a vote.
So this is Barbara. What if we added another town council meeting? If we have too much,
I could absolutely do that. That's another option, of course.
because I think that simplifies the matter rather than a town meeting with, making sure we get the quorum and all of the bureaucracy involved in a town meeting. We could just add an additional town council meeting to make sure that we cover everything that we need to cover within the next
Let me
month or
just
so.
throw a comment out on that. The plus for a town, the one aspect of a town meeting that, if like Charlie, I did read the recommendation for the McCatherine Hall renaming, and it starts really with after our review of the presentation, we're holding education discussions with town residents. Well, what does that mean? It might mean that there's now 2 cases have been made. They came from RASIC. The RASIC case that underlies the proposal that McCatherine, the name McCatherine be removed, and the one from Joan Mahaffey, that the case isn't strong, and the case for honoring Roy McCatherine with a name is still as strong as it ever was. So those are educational presentations. I don't know what else you might consider educational presentations, unless it's a discussion of what does inclusivity and racial discrimination and perpetuation of the past include. But those 2 could start off a town meeting, which would stimulate the point, I think, that the recommendation aimed at. There'd be a dialogue about the case for and the case against. At the same time, that offers the opportunity for every additional opinions to be thrown out. So that's the plus for a town meeting. The one for a town council meeting, Barbara's right. If you just want to, we could have a short town council meeting. That's almost a non sequitur, but
It's an oxymoron is what it is.
Oxymoron, sorry, that's what I mean, an oxymoron, you're right. And run through the 5 and get a better feeling for, where the council and what the argument feels.
Well, and John, the sort of educational presentation you're talking about, that could occur at a town council meeting just as well as it could at a town meeting, right? So,
but not with the same it wouldn't have the same, having it at a town meeting means there's no excuse for missing it. Having it at a council meeting, there's 100 excuses why, I didn't know, it's.
No.
I mean,
We
but on the
announce to
other
people
hand,
and they
look at how
decide
many
whether they're going to
people-
cover it or not.
Look at how many people were on this council meeting tonight, though. I think if people care about the issue. So, I mean, the recommendation is I assume for council to consider renaming. So I think we could, I guess I'm just saying, I don't think it has to be a town meeting. It could be a council meeting and still we would be considering. So.
Okay, we need to do some voting here to move forward. Let's go with the simpler one. Well, I shouldn't say simple. Let's just go for option one. That is to, and let's agree that we really don't want to add it to the discussion on March 11th, the regular meeting. Let's take a vote on scheduling another special council meeting in 4 weeks. That will be later in March. To take up discussion of these resolutions. The
So you
proposal.
need to make that motion, right?
Well,
I mean-
I can this is an administrative thing, but we can have a formal motion.
No, I just thought you were going to, so I had to say something.
So I move that that's what we do, that we hold an additional town council meeting to discuss business that cannot be completed in the March meeting.
I'll second that.
Okay. I think we can go right to a vote, I hope.
Wait a second, you made it sound like there were options. So you're saying there's no, this is the option. Is that what you're saying?
Well, you're voting on
That's not-
this. I mean,
Voting
the option
yes
is
or
if
no.
you- if
Well,
you vote,
you
can vote
began
against
this
it.
by saying, you began this by teasing us with the fact that we're going to vote on some option, decide some options. Now
You
it's just
seconded
one.
it, Peter.
That's right, to move things along.
I don't need to point out the obvious. You can always cancel the meeting on Monday, on March 11th. I mean, this is,
Okay, let's vote. Okay.
come and go. All right, so let's just vote on this. The proposal is to have another town council meeting. I would propose, let's not look at the dates, unless you want to, until March 11th.
Mhm.
Okay, all in favor of scheduling another special town council meeting? I see 3. All opposed? Christine is opposed. Where's Eva? Did you vote in favor? I missed you, Eva.
I voted in favor.
Okay, so that would be 4-1. We will schedule another town council meeting in March, following the March 11th meeting, when we will actually pick a date. Okay, great. Now that takes care of that. I guess there's nothing more to be said then. This brings us to the end of the agenda. Is there anything anybody else wants to bring up? Just off chance.
I just want to thank everybody for coming out tonight and sticking with us for all of this time. And thank you for all the comments that we've received, and they've been really helpful. So thank you for that.
Yes, that goes for, I'm sure, all of us.
Yes.
Impressive attendance. And it's good to see, even though you might not have wanted to get involved in this issue, this is a terrific participation in addressing the issue. Okay, so the next meeting, just to finish off this one, will be March 11th. We have to agree to start the meeting early for a closed session with our to get legal advice from Sue Ellen. I have fortunately confirmed with her that she can be available at 6:15. She has a hard stop at 7:25. And she has another meeting with another municipality at 7:30. So we can do that. So unless I hear an objection, we'll start the March 11th meeting at 6:15 with an open session with the intention to immediately close it to hear legal advice from our attorney. And that will end no later than 7:25. That'll be on the agenda for the meeting. Okay, and the other reminder, well, we'll work on that in March. We have a budget session coming up in March. I forgot exactly the date. It's in the latter part of March to work on that. Okay, thank you, everybody. Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Night.
Move to adjourn.